I never thought buying my dream house in this quiet suburban neighborhood would ignite the craziest war of my entire adult life. Yet here I stood in my own backyard watching Karen, the HOA president, dial 911 with pure venom in her eyes. Her shrill voice sliced through the warm afternoon air like a chainsaw on a Sunday morning. "You are trespassing on official HOA property right now, and I demand police intervention immediately," she screamed into the phone. I took a slow, deep breath, feeling the summer sun warm my skin while my blood pressure climbed steadily higher. The scent of fresh-cut grass from neighboring yards mixed with the faint smell of her overpowering perfume. My name is Mike, and I had moved into Willow Creek Estates 8 months earlier, chasing that perfect slice of suburban peace. The house came with a generous private lot out back, ideal for the vegetable garden I had always dreamed about planting. Everything seemed normal until I noticed the decorative HOA welcome arch and storage shed sitting squarely on what my deed proved was my land. Karen had been running the association like her personal kingdom for years, enforcing every petty rule with iron-fisted glee. At first she sent polite letters about supposed compliance issues that I dutifully ignored because they made zero sense. Then the fines started arriving in my mailbox, each one accusing me of neglecting the so-called community feature on my property. I laughed out loud the first time reading them because the absurdity hit me like a bad joke with no punchline. Karen showed up at my door one afternoon, clipboard in hand, and that fake concerned smile plastered across her face. "This arch and shed belong to the entire neighborhood, Mike, and you need to maintain them according to our bylaws," she declared smugly. I kept my voice steady and replied that my property survey from the purchase proved otherwise, but she waved it away like an annoying fly. The harassment escalated quickly after that, with daily drive-bys and notes left on my windshield about community spirit. Neighbors I barely knew started giving me side glances at the mailbox as if I had committed some unforgivable suburban sin. Karen even posted on the neighborhood Facebook group calling me uncooperative and suggesting I was harming property values on purpose. The comments poured in, with people piling on because nobody wanted to cross the queen bee of Willow Creek. I felt the isolation creep in like a slow fog, making backyard barbecues feel suddenly colder and more awkward than ever. My frustration built with every new complaint letter, but I stayed calm, collecting every piece of paper and email like a detective. One evening I decided enough was enough and hired a professional surveyor to settle the boundary once and for all. The results came back crystal clear, showing the HOA structures encroached by 12 full feet onto my private land. I printed the report and drove straight to the next board meeting, ready to present facts instead of feelings. Karen presided over the room like a courtroom judge, banging her gavel on the table with unnecessary force. "This is ridiculous, Mike. The land has always been common area, and your claim is nothing but a nuisance," she snapped publicly. I slid the survey across the table, watching her eyes narrow while the other board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The meeting ended without resolution, but the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a HOA rulebook. After that, the police calls became routine, with Karen claiming I was vandalizing HOA property every time I stepped near the arch. The first officer arrived looking bored and listened to her dramatic retelling before glancing at my deed copy. He shrugged and told her it looked like a civil matter, not a criminal one, which only made her face turn beet red. I started recording every interaction on my phone because I knew this was heading somewhere far more serious than petty fines. The turning point came when Karen accidentally replied all to an email chain that included me by mistake. In black and white, she admitted the board had skipped a proper survey to save money, claiming nobody would ever notice the encroachment. My hands shook slightly as I read the words, realizing this was the smoking gun I had been waiting for all along. I forwarded it immediately to my newly hired property lawyer, who called back within the hours, sounding genuinely excited. He assembled a small legal team, including a land use specialist, and we prepared a formal demand letter backed by ironclad evidence. The day they showed up at the special HOA emergency meeting, the atmosphere in the community center felt electric with dread. Karen stood at the podium trying to maintain her usual authoritative posture, but her hands trembled just a little. My lawyer laid out the documents one by one explaining trespass damages and potential class action implications for the entire board. The room fell silent except for the sound of papers rustling and a few nervous coughs from the other members. Karen attempted one last bluster, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, but her voice cracked under the weight of the proof. She started crying right there in front of everyone, big dramatic tears rolling down her perfectly powdered cheeks. The board members exchanged glances before voting unanimously to remove her as president effective immediately for gross misconduct. Karen gathered her things and stormed out, muttering about ungrateful neighbors while the door slammed behind her with finality. Within weeks, the HOA hired contractors to dismantle the illegal arch and shed, hauling everything away at their own expense. They even sent me a quiet settlement check to cover my legal fees and the survey costs without admitting full liability. The neighborhood slowly returned to its former peaceful rhythm, with people waving at me again instead of avoiding eye contact. I finally planted that garden I had dreamed about, watching tomatoes and peppers grow right where the HOA shed used to stand. Every morning I sip my coffee on the back patio, listening to birds instead of Karen's shrill complaints echoing across the lawns. It turns out the mighty HOA empire was nothing more than a fancy name for one woman's tiny kingdom of control. And kingdoms like that always crumble when they forget the simple truth that private land belongs to its rightful owner.